Yes, and Google Colab is also very much like Jupyter Notebook. There are certain differences, but 90% it's very similar. So if you're comfortable with Jupyter Notebook, you can always go to Google Colab as well, okay? So I'm making one variable here called raining now. And I'll set it to false because it's not raining right now here. So just a Boolean variable, okay? Nothing fancy. So when you talk about functions, there are different kinds of functions like built-in functions. Built-in functions are functions that are available in the language itself. You don't need to import anything. If you are a bit rusty on those concepts, then I definitely would suggest that you keep this as a bookmark and have this open at all times. Whenever you are learning Python or anything to do with Python, be it web development or machine learning or whatever, anything to do with Python, make sure you have this page open always, okay? There are many good things here. This is the official documentation for Python, and many good things here, of course, a complete set of information that you need to know about Python, Python 3.8. There are different versions of Python you can choose here for the documentation specific to that version. But most importantly, what you should refer to is the library reference and the language reference, okay? These are things that you should start out with. Of course, you can start out with tutorial also, but especially pay attention to library reference and language reference, okay? And then the rest is up to you, however you want to explore it. So a built-in function called type will show you the type of the variable, right? You should know this. So first I execute this cell, and then I execute this cell. It tells me it's a Boolean variable, right? Bool is a data type, a built-in data type in Python. I can actually change the value of this variable called raining now from false to true as well, right? And now if I print it, of course, it will say true because currently the value of raining now is true, okay? What is the point of all this, if you already know Python? Well, the point is to ask you, we know that raining now is a Boolean variable, but is it mutable or immutable? That's my question. So most of you are saying mutable. What do you understand by the term mutable? Mutable would mean that changeable, right? I mean, mutants, you've all seen X-Men, I think. So mutants mean something that can change, right? So obviously that makes sense because first raining now was false and then we changed it to true. So obviously it looks like mutable, right? But that's the point. The point is that, sometimes what we think logically may actually not be true. So here the case is that raining now is a Boolean variable, all right, but it's not a mutable type of variable. A Boolean variable by nature is immutable, okay? But now we have to understand why is it immutable. So let me show you what you are trying to say and why it is immutable. To illustrate this concept, I'm going to first add a cell here, use another built-in function called ID, and I'm going to do this here as well. I'm going to run these cells again. So I run this right now. Okay, I can restart and clear output. That'll restart the kernel, so I'll lose all the output. Okay, now it's like none of these ever executed. So I'll execute it once again, run. Now I find out what type of variable is raining now. So I execute this one. It says it's bool. Now I print the value of raining now, and it tells me it's false because we have set it to false. Now I check the memory address where this false value is residing, okay? So it shows me this number, which is basically an address in your RAM. You know, your computer has RAM, right? Volatile memory. And any place, anywhere in the world has got an addressing system, maybe like street addresses or numbers, even house numbers and office numbers, right? So just like that, the RAM, each place in your RAM has a certain number. That's the address of the memory location. So this false is actually residing in this memory address. Now, we are assigning a different value to the variable, the same variable raining now, and we print the value. Of course, it's now changed to true. Raining now is no longer false. It's now true. But if you print the ID has also changed, meaning that the true value is sitting somewhere else in the memory. It's not sitting in the same place as the false was sitting, okay? The false was sitting here in this address. The true is sitting here in this address, all right? But if that is the case, I mean, if you can change the value of a variable, then why is it called immutable? Why do we say, why does Python documentation, if you go to the documentation somewhere, it'll be mentioned, I'm sure, that Boolean data type in Python is immutable? That is because you cannot change the value of a variable in the same memory location. See, this is like when I execute this line, this statement, it is like destroying this variable and recreating the variable anew, afresh. It's got nothing to do with these previous lines. It's like these lines never existed. Okay, it's like I'm starting my program from this line. All these got destroyed. Okay, that is why it's called immutable. It cannot change. If you try to change it, it'll get destroyed and recreated. Okay, that's not the same as changing. That's not the same as mutable. Okay, so I hope you're clear on what is mutable and immutable. I'll give you one more example to make it. So booleans, integers, floating point numbers, and string variables all are immutable. Okay, all of these data types are immutable. There is one built-in data type, actually more than one, but I'll show you one here, which is mutable. One built-in data type, not int. I told you Boolean, int, string, float, all of these are immutable, okay? It is list, not tuple. Tuple is also immutable. So I create a list variable called student name list, and I fill it with some names. And so I have these 3 names in this list. Execute this. I'll do the same things, like I'll find out the type of this variable. It's a list. I will print the contents of this list. So I get this. Now I find the memory location of the contents of this list. It is sitting at this place in your RAM. Now I will change the list. I say .pop, okay? So .pop will remove the last element from the list, okay? So when I execute this, Lalit gets popped off the list and gets removed from the list. So now if I print the list, it is no longer Monica, Nikhil, and Lalit, but only Monica and Nikhil, okay? But if I do an ID on the list, it is still sitting in the same location. You see, I've changed the list, I've removed one element, but it's still sitting at the same location. And that is why it's called mutable, okay? You can change the contents of that variable without changing its memory location. And the same thing, if you append the list with 1 more element or 10 more elements, still the memory location will not change. However, can you think of a way to change this memory location for this list called student name list? That's correct. You can do a reassignment, and that will definitely change the memory address. Okay, so reassignment, no matter if the variable is mutable or immutable, it will change the memory address. So that is correct. I hope this was a good introduction